Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. I'm hoping you guys are all having a fantastic day. So in today's video, as you can tell by the title, we will be talking about a very large fall storm system that will be occurring across the United States. At this point, it's looking very likely for it to occur, and that we'll be also talking about the following pattern that will be kind of taking shape after that storm system and what it may enable. And you can see that the GFS and some other models are indicating a very active pattern. Beyond that system, we have another large storm potentially. Look at this one, even showing signs of some snow right there, which is definitely probably not going to happen, but it is definitely something that indicates fall is coming, temperatures are cooling down, and these storms are going to get bigger and bigger. So before we get into this and start talking about all this fun stuff, if you guys at any point when you're watching this video enjoy it, I just want to remind you that you can subscribe. It really helps out the channel. Obviously watch the video first. If you have any if you want to hit the thumbs up button, that really helps out a lot as well, obviously, if you enjoy it. And if you have any comments, concerns, questions, leave them down below. I get to pretty much most of the comments, as I don't get that many, so it's reasonable for me to answer all of them. Okay, let's get into this and start talking about this. So first off, let's start off by looking at the GFS. We have this model pulled up. It is the newest model run of the GFS, so really the freshest data as of 3 o'clock Central Time when I'm recording this on the 16th of September. And let's drag this forward. So notice what we do have is already a lot of activity even prior to the storm. We have a cold front across the Midwest and into the plains of the United States that will be dropping some showers, storms, activities of that nature. We do obviously have a lot of storms and wet weather across the South, and that has actually, according to the National Weather Service, and that's very reasonably, has triggered some, well, look at that, we have some flash flood watches and flash flood warnings, and definitely a high-risk rainfall potential. There has been already a ton, and you can see that oncoming rain isn't as significant as it may seem, to issue all these watches and warnings, but again, it's mainly already what's on the ground and what's on those soils and what that has kind of caused. Look at the north, kind of the mid-Atlantic. We have a flash flood watch. Again, these areas have been very wet, and look, these storms right now that have fired up are extremely stationary. So again, we already have a lot of activity. If you live here, some of these systems, I should say thunderstorms, have taken their sweet old time and haven't moved much in the past hour to hour and a half, and that's why it's causing these flash flood warnings, which is again for extremely heavy rainfall, warning people that there is some flash flood warning going on. You can see they're very isolated areas, but 1 or 2 inches have fallen. 1 or 2 is possible, if not expected, so stay safe there. But we also have signs of fall. Look at that right there. Frost advisories across North Dakota. A frost advisory is issued every time there's a risk for the night temperatures not to get down to 32, but actually 34. If it's at a threat of getting down to 32 and below, it's a freeze advisory that is issued. And anything below a 28 degree Fahrenheit criteria is a hard freeze warning. And, we'll definitely start seeing those pop up in the near future. That's not the first one of the year. We've had already a few across the Idaho Panhandle, and that's nice to see. A bit of that cooler making its way into the plains. Don't be mistaken, though. The daytime temperatures will still be very warm, even into the 80s. Okay. Let's put this forward. So again, we're dealing with a lot of current weather. I always kind of want to get that out of the way. We do have that low pressure. We'll bring in some showers and potentially some wind across the northeast, though most of it does stay offshore, and that's good. We don't really want any more rain across the northeast, but it looks as if you might get some anyways. Again, it shouldn't be that significant, but it may cause more of these stationary kind of thunderstorms that obviously have a potential of producing very heavy rain, and not really severe, but very heavy rain, and that is, if you will, a very concerning thing. As you saw, those flash flood watches already on top of very wet soils. This is our system, however. Look at that. British Columbia, northwestern United States, southwestern Canada, Washington, Oregon, lots of rain, and of course lots of snow for the higher elevations. Look at that. That is some beneficial rain moving into Oregon, Washington, California, northern California, I may specify, northern Nevada, into much of Idaho. Definitely nice seeing that. A snow across the Yellowstone area. Definitely not too early for that to start occurring. It's insane how short the summer is across those locations, really Yellowstone itself and higher and the plateau that it lies on. And as we push this forward, by Monday, this is where the system starts taking on some interesting characteristics. All this moisture from the south, because of this high pressure and this low pressure, creating pretty much a conveyor belt for this to ride up. And look, it all gets transported to the north. So already you folks will be dealing with rain across much of Indiana, Ohio, Illinois, Missouri, Kentucky, Tennessee, Arkansas, Mississippi, Louisiana, Alabama, Georgia. All of these areas and Florida will be dealing with rainfall and have been dealing with it, and you'll continue to deal with it. It's pretty needed up. The further up north you go, you know, that rainfall in my area here, for example, northern Illinois, it's pretty dry, so we would benefit from this. And look what's going on across the plains, Minnesota, Ontario, Quebec. A very, very powerful storms potentially. I wouldn't say severe weather outbreak, but, you know, that doesn't really justify anything because you don't need a severe thunderstorm outbreak to have severe weather that damages things. So that's definitely something to keep an eye on for. The low pressure kind of enhances that, but notice as it pushes forward, it develops a cold front, develops a kind of a back building comma-shaped precip shield on the back. We do have very warm air out ahead of it. Based on how these lines are oriented, you can see they're kind of those red lines, the 546, 552, they're almost like spearheads diving into the south. That means that we do have a bit of that chilly air behind that. Not the coldest, but definitely chilly. And it's all brought because of the system. Notice it has a giant cold front behind it. Lots of precip to do with it. It's just a multi-day kind of system. And by the time it's Wednesday and Thursday, it looks as if this cold front stays together. If you recall in yesterday's video, the GFS was a proponent of this cold front falling apart. GFS now sticks it all the way into the northeast again. Some severe weather is possible, but by really by early Friday, it should be mostly gone, just delivering rain and some snow into really Quebec, far eastern Atlantic Canada. But notice that cold front really affecting large cities, Toronto, Montreal, Ottawa, Quebec, obviously the northeast cities, Philadelphia, New York, Washington, D.C., Pittsburgh, and Erie, upstate Albany. I mean, there's so many cities, right? So again, something to watch for. What we do see is, again, a bit of that chilly air, and I want to show you that a lot of models do show this, including the European, and you can see that would obviously, this doesn't look too impactful, but it's fall, so chilly air in fall is going to feel much chillier than chillier in the summer, obviously. That's less, you know, don't really need to explain that, but yeah, you can see 40s, 30s, probably even too cold to keep the windows open all night, to be frank with you. During the day, beautiful, right? And that's kind of what you want to see. So really just an awesome fall blast of air for the Great Lakes, the South. And you can see it makes it all the way into the South. I mean, 50s across the South, the Gulf Coast, that's going to be nice. Unfortunately, it doesn't last forever, and we do start seeing heat move back in, and you can see it's really going to be hot, especially across the West and the Central Plains. But based on the GFS, as I showed you that frame at the beginning of the video, there's a storm system that could develop out of one of these little troughs, these cold fronts that kind of digs through. Notice it's right there, very eager to come down here, and that low pressure pretty much is what this cold air needs to get down here. And look, develops, explodes. Obviously a bit too aggressive with that snowfall. Probably if this were to occur, it would be more of a rain system. Apologize about that. The phone is ringing. The reason why this system gets so strong so quickly isn't necessarily because, oh, it's a GFS being crazy in a long range. There's actually a pretty simple explanation for this. So notice that right before this system comes through here, we have already the isobars, or kind of the lines of pressure. You can see right there we have the 552. Not really lines of pressure, sorry. This is more dictating of kind of the air masses, the troughs, the jet stream. It's already kind of doing this type of a troughing, right? And this system rides along this almost in a clipper type fashion, and once it gets to the northeastern kind of quadrant, southeastern quadrant of this trough, where it starts going to the north and east, is where there are really strong jet stream winds, and that's where it could really intensify. And notice that's pretty much exactly what the system does, and this happens oftentimes in the winter when the jet stream is much stronger, and it happens much more often. But look, right there, it starts intensifying, boom, and it explodes, and it creates its own trough, lots of cold air. Again, probably a bit of an exaggeration, but this would be very chilly air. Yeah, that would create a definite anomaly for a good chunk of the eastern United States. People that miss out the most on this cool air looks to be kind of Idaho, Wyoming, Utah, Nevada area, but even those folks may get in on some cooler air masses of air, for example, right there into next week before that first system. But there's our first cool down potentially. There's our second cool down, and yeah, the models definitely don't really show an all-out warm pattern or a all-out cold pattern. So it's definitely something we'll have to keep an eye on for. Let's take a look at this total accumulated precip before that second system, just from this first one. Notice pretty decent amounts. Again, this isn't exact. This is just showing us where the GFS favors the heaviest to fall. The northeast, the south, the upper plains, and a little bit dry here. I would think that there may be a bit more than what this model is showing. But look at this right there across the northwest, southwestern Canada. So that is very good news. That is some rain. Again, classic kind of fall transition as the northwest, the Pacific Northwest starts getting wetter and wetter. You know that the seasons are changing, and that does get into Northern California, which is nice. Some rain as well into Utah and Arizona, which is also very, very good news. As we take a look at a different model, let's take a look at the Canadian. And since we already have the preset pulled up, let's see what it differs. So again, this just takes us through this first storm. Well, because the Canadian only goes out to 240. Shows very similar to what the GFS does across the northwest, shows very similar amounts across the south, and it favors their heavy rain across the northeast, which really isn't that good. I shouldn't say it's heavy, but it definitely favors rain, more of a rainy pattern. Shows a bit more across Iowa, Missouri, Illinois, which I think is more reasonable. I do think, though, that obviously the heaviest will stay to the north into southern Canada, where that system has that severe weather potential. So look, this is what we have ongoing, right? There's our system landfalling again Friday, Saturday, which is tomorrow and into this weekend. Quite a bit of rain for Utah, Wyoming, Montana. I wouldn't say a lot, but definitely comparatively to what you've seen so far with this drought, it's definitely going to help. And we have that tropical moisture spilling to the north, and we do have that low pressure starting to develop. Again, Canadian develops that cold front, tracks it all the way through the northeast. It does weaken somewhat, but right there, that could definitely cause some severe weather. And we do have that spearhead in terms of those lines right there, the 552 and 540, which indicates that cooler air mass trying to pivot its way in. And we do have some sort of a spinny system right there, which again kind of brings a cool temperature, a resurge of it, if you will. And that is seen on the 2-minute temperature anomaly, obviously out ahead of the storm next week. Very warm air behind it, very cool air. So the south and the west Canada will be, or really the west will be dealing with that cool air, which is nice. And then it spills towards the east as that system passes through. You can see right there. The GFS kept it a bit longer and a bit stronger than the Canadian, the cool air. And usually I prefer the GFS and European models versus the Canadian in terms of its air mass. So again, this may not be the most accurate, and I will show you what the European shows, which again agrees with the GFS pretty well. And you can see that it does show a warm pattern across the upper plains, maybe the western portions of the Midwest and the West. Again, if it were to be warm, it would probably be the warmest across these areas for the next 10 to 12 days, which this forecast goes out to. And now let's take a look at that European model. A very good model. Some would say the best model that goes out to 240, kind of the short to medium range. So again, we already have a lot of activity going on. We have that cold front system across the northeast, and of course that landfalling storm and its precipitation mass across the west. Lots of rain into Oregon, California, Nevada. Good news. And that does get kind of torn up by the mountains, but with the tropical moisture, this system really quickly strengthens, and you can see a large area of precipitation already developing across Sunday and into Monday across the plains in southern Canada. This spills on eastward into Illinois, Michigan, Missouri, Indiana, Iowa, and you can see it does develop that cold front. Lots of rain to the north. We do have that spearhead, if you will, of those air mass lines. That's kind of what I like to call them. There's an actual name for them. But notice that this cold front does, again, like the other models, intensifies it all the way through the northeast, bringing decent amounts of rain, to say the least. And that's pretty much the end of that one. But also look at this. It actually tries redeveloping the storm right there. As you see, we have that same troughing pattern, very strong winds right here, and it takes that energy from that precip and it tries redeveloping a storm, which would enhance some of the precip amounts right there for sure. And really the next few slides show that pattern kind of continuing with a really upper level low spinning weak precipitation shields into the northeast and midwest, and that would bring again more chilly air, and you can see that definite cool anomaly, and the temperature anomalies show that. So again, compared to average, it's going to be warm out ahead of the system. Some would say very warm, even hot, but right there where that that storm arrives, relatively chilly air, that's going to be nice cool off. Just downright cold for some of the mountain ranges. Probably enough to again support quite a bit of snow from that precip. And we do have that very warm air. Look at Canada right there, southeastern Canada, 20 to 30 degrees above average. But again, look at that cool air behind it. Also very nice during the day, not as cool as comparatively during the night. Or sorry, during the night, not as cool as during the day compared to average, which again has been a trend amongst some of the models. But look, the south gets in on this all the way up until where polar bears live. So really a broad kind of cool down, and it's not too intense, but definitely will many folks will feel the taste of fall. So again, the European agreeing with the GFS, hanging this cool air mass around for quite a bit more while than what the Canadian does. If you recall, this is the model I showed you before this model, and it just kind of scoured that cold air out. Again, this one is more consistent, the European and the GFS, so therefore I think they have a better handle on this. Warm air does make its way into portions of the Midwest, maybe not all the way to the coast, but the European does start showing kind of another cool down starts to pivot in, and I think on this website I could show you that a bit better. You could see there's our first one, and then there's our second one that starts pivoting out ahead of another potential storm, which again the European doesn't go out to beyond 240, but as you saw the GFS does, and it showed that nasty system. So we'll have to wait and see. Total accumulated precip from the European, let's just take a look at the maximum range out, again showing a bit more across Iowa, Wisconsin, Missouri, kind of the if you will, the breadbasket of the U.S. I think that, again, this is a bit more reasonable than what the GFS showed, which was almost nothing here. Could be an inch, 2 inches, nothing extraordinary. I think towards the south and east, you go into Pennsylvania, Ohio, Kentucky, the amounts start getting quite a bit higher, an inch, 2 inches, and across southeastern Canada also some gracious amounts of precipitation. Look at that, Quebec, Ontario, 6-7 inches where that storm initially develops. The plains, northern plains, the high plains, not seeing too much. Southern Canadian prairies, not too much either. Definitely some chances for some rain. But look at that, Idaho, Wyoming, that may not seem a lot, but obviously compared to the south it isn't. But comparatively to what they had this year, that's definitely needed, and especially across the west coasts of Oregon and Washington, those are plentiful amounts of rain in the approaching 2 to 3 inches, which will spill into California, which is very, very good news, and they need that as well. So that is definitely something good. But I just want to show you that even these models, they disagree with themselves. This was a model run from the European, the same model 12 hours ago, and you can see some differences. It showed a bit more for the Northwest. It showed a bit less for the Ohio, Pennsylvania area. This is 12 models prior to this model run, and you can see there was even more differences. It showed a lot of rain across the plains, not so much across the eastern seaboard, and now it doesn't show that rain there. So there's some differences, and again, a lot of this is very unpredictable, but this is the most updated one, the current one, the thoughts kind of, and you can see it's definitely showing some decent rainfall across these locations. All right, folks, thank you so much for watching. That's basically all I wanted to cover. That's basically all I have for you today, and we'll just have to keep things on our radar, if you will. This is the United Kingdom model from the UK, obviously, and you can see it does show very heavy rain amounts here all along British Columbia, Washington, Oregon, and some decent amounts into the south, Illinois, Indiana, and look at that, into Minnesota, potentially 4 or 5 inches. Doesn't show a lot here because it only takes us to 144 hours. So that system, if we were to take a look, is positioned at this point in time, so it hasn't made its way to the northeast at 144 hours out. All right, thank you guys so much for watching. That will be it for today's video. Hopefully you enjoyed, hope you learned something new, and I'll catch you all on the next episode. See ya. Bye.